even in our, in neighbouring jurisdictions, that they're struggling for air traffic controllers. And the airport has taken two routes to that. One is to recruit experienced air traffic controllers from elsewhere, but we have a period where we need to train them up in how our systems work, and we do some significantly different bits where people are multi-skilled here rather than being more focused as they might be if they were at a larger airport on just one particular aspect. So there's a period there of transitioning those experienced people in, but we've also taken the route of taking people from scratch and training them up to be air traffic controllers. But because of the problems that we were having with air traffic controllers agreeing their terms and conditions and their pay and everything, it all got wrapped up in there that training pretty much stopped for a period of time, and that meant that we just weren't making any progress with trying to get people up to speed and to get them qualified so that they can work independently and they don't need to be supervised. And then that, of course, frees up staff time in your roster. So we've come out the other side of that. There was a lot of hard work done before Christmas to agree what that pay deal was and what the conditions, and to get training restarted. And we are on a different roster now, which should, as we work through that and get people qualified, we will, that those closure periods will start to become a thing of the past. We'll see that the airport has resilience, that we can open the service later on in the evenings, so you won't get that weird situation of the last flight in is 15 minutes late and the airport has had to close, but we'll be able to stay open to receive those flights just like we used to. And I think if you go back 7 or 8 years, I don't think the public would have been quite as aware of what needs to go on in terms of air traffic control, but they are now. And I'm fairly confident that we are coming out of that. It's been a slow and it's been a long haul and it's taken a lot of work. And I really sort of thank the air traffic controllers for their patience, but also the management and the board at the airport for working through the issues to try and find the future. And it does revolve around having a resilient service, and that's one of the key features of what we do in the department. Is we talk a lot about resilience in services, and this is just one aspect.
Okay, Sue, final word.
Yeah, well, it's just that's very, very interesting, and you're absolutely right when you're talking about the issues surrounding recruitment and training. And I know that you did, when asked about recruitment, training, and importantly retention in Tynwald, you stated the reasons that the 4 experienced controllers who had left in the last 3 years were multifaceted and included training delays due to COVID. And that each of the 4 to leave in the last years have all received exit interviews. And I think it's possible. I really think it's important that you get the best information possible, Michelle, because you can't do your job otherwise. And I feel for you. So I think you should check on the information you get, because I'm one of the 4 of the air traffic controllers that left in the last 3 years. The first of them, in fact. And I can assure you that we didn't leave due to training delays. One of them was NDA'd out, I believe, and the rest of us were not happy with the way the airport's managed and the frankly quite toxic work environment. I'm really glad that you've given credit to the controllers there, because they're not a happy unit, and they have been, they've had to deal with an awful lot of pressure over the past few years, and they stood up to it quite well. Personally, I left as a matter of principle, because that airport is the worst managed and the least safe I have come across in over 43 years in this industry. I left because I'd given up all hope that there was the will or the competence to resolve the safety issues there. They're in denial. And additionally, I was also not offered an exit interview. So I do believe you've been misinformed, and I really hope you get better information in the future.
Okay. Sue, we appreciate your call. Just a final word, Michelle Haywood.
No, I'd just like to say thank you for that. So, Sue, if you would like to meet up and talk about those issues, I'd be happy to arrange a meeting with you and to discuss it. And it sounds like you have quite a lot of information, perhaps, that would be good for me to be aware of.
Okay, all right, let's move on. And Eric's on now. Hi, Eric.
Hi, Andy. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Eric.
It won't be a surprise. The question is about mobility scooters and buses.
This has gone on. How long is this? This is longer than War and Peace, Eric.
It's 6 years and 7 ministers.
Okay. So, Michelle Haywood.
Eric, I'm going to make your year. So, here's the current situation. I promised you I was working on it, and you're right, I'm the 7th minister with this one on my bag. As of Monday, anyone who wants to book an assessment to get a permit to take a mobility scooter on the buses can contact the Welcome Centre and they'll book them in for a session. On Tuesday the 27th of January, down at the Bottleneck car park, Bus Mannin will have a bus so that people who use either wheelchairs or mobility scooters who are not feeling perhaps confident at getting on and off the bus and not quite sure where to go can come down and have a little bit of a practice session there with the staff and build their confidence. And as of February the 2nd, all of the bus routes, apart from the Village Connect options, will be open to mobility scooters to use those services. Now, this is subject to, there are still limited stops where the bus can actually stop and safely load or offload a mobility scooter. And so the website for the bus company is currently being updated so that it will show all of those stops. And it's important to stress that just because you get onto a bus on one side of the road and head off in your destination, that when you return, the bus stop on the other side of the road might not be accessible. So what I'm urging people to do is to check which stops on the route they want to go are accessible stops, and they're assessed so the bus can stop safely and you can get off the pavement, more importantly, once you manage to get off the bus safely. So the big news is, Eric, your wait is finally over after 7 ministers and 6 years, and if you want to count up the months and days, then I'm happy for you to do that. As of February the 2nd, the bus routes will be open to mobility scooter users, subject to them having a permit and making sure that they check that the stops that they want to go to are safe stops for them to use.
Eric?
Well, I was beginning to think I'd be dead before it ever come through, but
don't die just yet.
1 minute. Well, at least one minister has done what she said she would do, unlike the other 6 ministers where we got nowhere. Am I right in thinking then that I've been and done that test and I've got the sticker on my buggy that I can I don't need to go for another test, I can just go on the bus on the 2nd?
Yep, you don't need to go for another test. You can go on the bus on the 2nd. If you let me know what bus you're going on, Eric, I'll come and join you.
Yeah, okay. Can I just give you, it really is good news that, like you say, it's been a long time coming, but can I just ask you 2 other things? Pedestrian crossings over here. Now, the RIDC, which is Research Institute for Disabled Consumers, they have said, I've seen the survey, that pedestrian crossings are set at 7 seconds for you to cross the road. Now, I've tried it myself and I've timed the lights. It's the same here, and on the lights of Parliament Square, 7 seconds does not get you across the road. Now, this research has been done, and the pedestrian crossings need to be set to 9 or 10 seconds instead of 7, because old people or disabled people cannot get across the road in 7 seconds. So would you look at that, please?
Excellent. We don't want you playing chicken with the traffic, Eric. So I will feed that back to the highways team and make a request that they start looking at those crossings, because that seems an eminently sensible thing to suggest. But, I've managed to solve one. Don't just dwell on the fact we've solved one problem. Stop before you throw any more at me.
Well, can I throw another one at you then? Blue badges and the abuse of blue badges. In the UK, every blue badge starts the number which is visible from outside the car. It starts with X or Y, Y for men, X for women, and the next number is your date of birth. So it's, in my case, 1956. So my blue badge would say Y 1956, and a traffic warden can look at that and he can see that a 69-year-old man should be coming and parking there or getting back into his car. At the moment, there's nothing like that in the Isle of Man, and it's a very easy way of seeing who is abusing blue badges. And again, that would take nothing to change, just by putting that X or Y and your date of birth in, and that may help to solve the problem of the misuse of blue badges.
Okay, thank you for the information. I wasn't aware that there was widespread abuse of blue badges. It's not something I've I've prioritised looking at, but I can take to go and find out what the situation is. I know I get regular commentary about people who have disabled spaces marked outside of the house, and then the owner, sadly passes away or something, and the space stays there, and somebody adopts the space when they don't have a right to use it. So there are some issues around accessibility. I've also had some challenges recently when I've been talking to local authorities about how much disabled parking is provided, because at the moment we work to sort of standard UK guidelines about the number of disabled parking spaces in an area. But I'm very conscious of the Isle of Man with an ageing demographic means that we probably need to look to increase that number. So there is a piece of work going on around that. I have been refocusing the department's accessibility steering group to start looking at all sorts of issues, not just about originally it was about mobility scooters onto buses, but to start looking at all sorts of access issues in terms of ability to access information, ability to get into services and buildings. So we're starting to widen their remit, and I can certainly feed it into them to have a look about this system as well.
Eric, how bad is the abuse of blue badges, do you think?
It's very bad, and it is mostly people. I mean, I had somebody say to me one day, I've only been 30 seconds and I would have moved if you'd asked me. But that's no use to me when I'm going past a disabled space. And it is being abused. I don't think there's about the right amount of disabled parking space in most places, but it's just the people who use them wrongly, and people are using other people's badges. If you've got a mother that's disabled and she's got a blue badge, and while the son or the daughter goes shopping, they are parking in there using the mother's blue badge, and she's not with them. And I think it's going on all over the place.
Okay. All right, Eric, we appreciate it, and good news about the bus accessibility. So, Michelle Haywood, who's responsible if somebody is misusing a blue badge or somebody's parked in a space? Is that a police matter or is it a parking warden matter?
There's always a bit of a confusion, I think, about whether parking wardens or police have jurisdiction, and police certainly can deal with it. Our parking wardens will check those permits as they're going around as well. I know that because I see the chap that works outside the C terminal going around and checking for discs and for parking permits there. So it can happen, and obviously, as I said, we do get a lot of reports from people saying, well, this disabled space was marked 6 years ago and hasn't been really valid for the last 3 years.
Because it says on disabled spaces, I think the misuse fine is up to £1,000.
Yeah, it's greater than for parking on double yellow lines. So you'll often see people will opt to park on the double yellow lines rather than in the disabled space. I don't have I think there is obviously some abuse, and if you are a blue badge holder and you're finding yourself being frustrated trying to get into a space that's occupied by somebody who shouldn't legitimately be there, you're rightfully going to be very sensitive to that, and to see that. I will feed back to the accessibility steering group and to see what we can start to do, because this is part of a bigger picture that comes from the transport strategy that we published recently, which is about accessibility across all of our network, and that's the road and the bus network. So this does come under that remit, and I will go away and have a look at it.
Those dates again: Tuesday 27th of January and February the 2nd. Tuesday 27th is for the Bottleneck, is that right?
Yeah, that's down at the Bottleneck, and they'll have one of our buses down there so that that wheelchair or mobility scooter users or anyone who's using a mobility aid can get some advice and get some assistance and practice getting on and off the bus and know where they need to go and practice their turning circle in their scooter if that's necessary. So what we're hoping is that builds confidence, and that the team down there will help users, to feel that they can actually get onto the bus safely and comfortably without feeling embarrassed or anything about not knowing quite where to stop themselves or quite how to park up.
Okay, Mike's with us now. Hello, Mike. You're live with Michelle Haywood MHK.
Good afternoon, Minister and Andy. What I'd like, please, is an update on something I brought to your attention when you did the 20 mile an hour consultation in Peel. Basically, my motorcycle, my 1000cc motorcycle, I cannot ride it at 20 mile an hour for extended periods. To do 20 mile an hour in first gear, it hunts badly, which would cause engine damage and all sorts of other problems. So you did say, well, what do I do about going past the school? I try not to go past the school when the 20 mile an hour lights are on, etc. As Peel on the map you showed us is a complete blanket 20 mile an hour speed limit. For me to get from, say, QE2 to where I live down in Mill Road, I'm going to have to be slipping the clutch all the time to be riding smoothly and safely. My friend's got a big V twin. It'll smash the big bearings, her big end bearings, to pieces. It happens regularly on Harley Davidsons because people buy into the idea you can stick it in top gear and go as slow as you like. So what do I do? I mean, because I'm going to have to do at least 25 mile an hour. Well, I'd say 25, but I can do that in first gear smoothly. Have you taken into that account and what's going to happen is my question.
Okay, so thanks, Mike, for the question. Did you put your feedback into the consultation that was run across the central belt of the island?
I certainly did, yeah.
Okay.
We had a good long chat with yourself because there wasn't that many people there.
Yeah. And did you submit written feedback in as well?
Yeah, I wrote it there.
Okay. So that will have gone in. So that feedback is all being analysed at the moment to look and see what the sort of the options are and what the challenges are. I must admit, out of all of the conversations that I had all the way around the island, yours was the only one where you'd flagged up what seems like quite specific engine problems because of the type of engines and bikes that you have. And you're obviously far more knowledgeable about those challenges than I am. And I think my comment to you back then was around, but actually, are you really doing 30 miles an hour through those roads anyway? Because I suspect a lot of us, although the roads are marked as 30 miles an hour, when you check your speed, you realise that you're probably not doing that. Now, I accept what you say about how you're going to have to ride your bike, and I don't have an answer for that, I'm afraid.
Yeah, because I did, when you asked me that question about what speed I do, and I told you the story, and I've told it to Andy before on the radio, I'm very, very strict on 30s and 40s in residential areas because of a massive, terrible accident that happened in Swindon when I used to live there on the same estate. I was in mid-20s. I was a lunatic. Quite happily admit it. The accident is what slowed me down. I can ride at 30 mile an hour, no problem at all. I can actually do it in second gear just about, and it's still smooth. But it's not just about being smooth and engine damage. Also, when it's hunting like that and the bike's jerking, etc., and it'll be on other vehicles as well, but predominantly on big motorbikes, it's not safe either when it's doing that. There is a safety issue. So I'm going to be trying to control a bike that is not smooth, and I'm going to be looking down at speedo all the time, and it's going to slip in the clutch all the time is very bad on your wrist, the muscles in your wrist. I mean, I haven't clocked it. It's a fair distance from QE2 all the way down to Mill Road. It's just not practical.
Okay.
And as somebody else said to you, in the last 10 years, we can only think of one fatality in Peel, and that was, unfortunately, the gentleman stepped out. I forget the name of the road, on the junction, and a car had no chance but to hit him.
Okay. All right, Mike, we appreciate it. Thanks for raising those points today. And we'll obviously get to the bottom of this. But I have to just bring up as well, Michelle Haywood, I don't know whether you saw it was on social media yesterday, that just said so much for the DOI consultation on the 20 mile per hour speed limits. They're now proceeding with the placing of the signs from the 19th of January. Is this so? Are the signs going in?
Yeah, so back last year we took an implementation plan to Tynwald, and we said what we'll do is here's the timings for everywhere. We're going to consult, we're going to analyse those results, then we'll publish the orders. We published revised traffic orders in light of the first consultation for Douglas and Onchan several weeks ago now, and went back out for consultation on those. We had another round of feedback from those. We've analysed that feedback as well, and between the first consultation and publishing the sort of revised maps, we'd amended some of the proposals that we had in our first set of proposals. So we changed 4 of the roads in Douglas and Onchan, on the basis of feedback, and then reconsidering the case whether it should be 30 or 20 along a road. Those new maps went out, and there's a statutory period of a couple of weeks of those being published, and the consultation. We've had that second round of feedback. We've considered that as well, and now we're proceeding to make the traffic orders. So we're slightly behind the implementation schedule that we shared with Tynwald, and that Tynwald sort of approved us to get on with, just because of the sheer volume of consultation, and because I've sat down with officers and we've gone through all of that data, and we've gone through all of the feedback, and then for the roads that there were significant comments and challenges about, we've considered each of those individually and in detail to come to a decision at the end of the process. So the way of making traffic orders requires us in statute that we have to publish it again, and we do that by putting them in the back of the courier. I don't know if many people read the back of the courier anymore, but that's where traffic orders tend to get published, because they have done for years. Now, I can question whether that's the right mechanism or not, or whether we need to update that mechanism. But actually that's what happened. And so they got published just because we have finished the consultation and we've published that. All of the consultation information is available on the 20 mile an hour website. So anyone can go and read through the data there, and can read through the reasonings from officers.
Okay, I mean, just for the avoidance of doubt, what was the reason for the 20 mile per hour is basically rolling out a blanket 20 mile per hour limit in many, many places? Was it safety? Was it saving the world? What was it for?
I'm still going to wince at the blanket term, because it's not. So a blanket term
Well, I
would
mean,
be what Wales did,
Mrs.
where they said...
Yeah, Mrs. Corlett
everywhere.
wanted part of Upper Douglas, because obviously she was around Ballacomine High
The
School.
original Tynwald motion that Mrs. Corlett proposed, and that was seconded by Rob Collister, was essentially that all residential streets should be considered for 20 miles an hour. And so the department has sat down with a set of criteria and said, okay, all residential streets is a bit of a loose definition. How do we work through that? We worked up a set of criteria that involved the density of housing, the proximity to schools, nurseries, elderly care homes, the proximity to community settings whereby there might be more pedestrians. And if you go back to the original Tynwald discussions, it was partly about safety, but it was also about the quality of life for living in those areas. Because if you live in a house where the traffic zooms past and the speed limit is 30 and everyone's doing 35, it's noisy, it feels dangerous when you're out on the streets. You can feel that swoosh of traffic as it goes past you when you're walking. Whereas if the traffic speed is restricted, it's a nicer environment to live in.
Yeah. Are you relying on the good nature of people then to adhere to the limits, or will there be sanctions? Will there be speed cameras? Bluntly, it's a bit like the blue badge, the misuse of disabled parking bays. When will somebody be sanctioned for this? Because if you're not going to sanction people, the well-behaved citizen will take notice of this, and there'll always be the citizens who don't behave themselves, the ones who drop litter and this, that and the other, antisocial behaviour. They'll still do more than 20.
Yeah, and to a certain extent, we make all laws because there are some people who won't behave in a reasonable way. The law over speeding is quite clear, and when we've changed the limits in places, the same laws apply as to if you break the speed limits now. The police have been quite clear that they don't have any more resource to put into speed enforcement, and they will target any of their efforts at areas where there are increased risks. And so we've seen a number of social media posts from them over the last few weeks even about asking people to slow down around schools. Now, in the consultation work that we've done, everyone came back and said, yes, around schools, yes, around schools, yes, around schools. And then I feel really sad that I'm watching the police social media feed, and they're busy saying, please, can you slow down around schools? Yeah. There is part of this is an education piece. Part of this is about shifting our perceptions and accepting that the built environment, that urban environment, and whether even if it's in our small communities, is safer for people if the speeds are lower. So I think there will be most of our citizens are law-abiding citizens and will try and slow down. I know I'm asking them to undo the habits potentially of decades of driving, and I know, I freely admitted that I sometimes have to check myself, and somebody told me, well, you spend all your time looking at your speedo. You don't. You learn the new speed on the road, and then you do learn to drive to that. Yeah, it does take a little period of adjustment. And I only need the person at the front of the traffic to be doing 20 miles an hour for everyone else behind them to be doing 20 miles an hour. But we know that there are people that in 30 miles an hour on certain roads will be driving at 40 or 45. I think there is a psychological barrier that comes in that if that road then becomes 20 and you're still used to driving at 40, you're then doing twice the speed limit. That's the 6 points on your licence, and that's excessive speed. And I think that becomes the point at which people will check their own behaviour as well. There are no plans anywhere on my desk or coming through offices that I'm aware of about speed cameras. That's been a kind of almost a mistaken thread all the way from the beginning, because we were putting in some signs that had an electricity feed to them. That's because they're the flashing wigwag signs that go up around schools, and guess what, to make the lights work we need some electricity in there. So it's not to do with speed cameras, and it's not to do with trying to find people. Although interestingly, when I went to speak to GARF commissioners, they were actually asking about the possibility of a speed camera in Baldrine, because they thought that would be the thing that would slow people down as they came through Baldrine and down into Laxey.
OK, live with Michelle Haywood through till 1 today on Mannin Line, the Department of Infrastructure, and your calls and questions.
A great night's sleep got even better with Zed's Bedding Store. From quality Bell-Dorm bed linen and mattress protectors, fleece and woven throws, to luxury duvets from the fine bedding company. Zed's Bedding Ramsey, next to Isle of Man Bank.
Manx Memorials in Ballasalla will guide you in creating beautiful, lasting memorials across the island. From a wide range of granite and marble headstones, custom inscriptions, expert renovations and pet memorials, adding care and compassion in every detail. We offer families peace of mind for years with perpetual grave care. We're there when you need them most. Call 843-861 or email matthew@manxmemorials.co.uk.
Darker days and damper conditions require more action. Make sure you carry out your vehicle safety checks this winter. Think powders. P, petrol and diesel. O, oil. W, water. D, damage. E, electrics. R, rubber. S, self.
Make sure your lights are all working too. Brought to you by Quayside Tyres in conjunction with Isle of Man Road Safety.
For 100 years, Manx Petroleum has been part of island life. From fueling journeys to heating homes and businesses, we've been there, quietly, reliably, locally. A century of keeping the island moving. A century of keeping it warm. A century built on trust. And today, as ever, we're powering everyday life with care, experience and premium fuels. Manx Petroleum, always here for you.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
And Michelle Haywood MHK, and Julian's with us now. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy, and hello, Michelle.
Hi, Julian.
Hiya. The interim airport director, Jeff Pugh, stated last week that only a pre-treatment preventative chemical, potassium acetate, is available for runway de-icing operations at Ronaldsway Airport, rather than the proper de-icing glycol chemicals which clear existing ice. Who made this decision? Why? And are there any plans to include proper glycol de-icers in the future at Ronaldsway?
Okay, so we don't have any plans to use glycol as far as I'm aware. So the shift to acetate-based products was made in 2008. I'm not even sure I'm aware of who were the airport management directors at the time that would have been making that decision, but it does reflect a wider industry shift. And we are using two products at the airport, the potassium acetate, which is the solution which we'll use on the runways and taxiways, and it's best applied when it's dry and before the snow starts to fall. So you have to judge that carefully, but if there's going to be too much, sort of, I was going to say rainfall before you get the snow or before you get the freezing stuff, there's a possibility that because it's a liquid, it washes away. And so just like farmers do when they're talking about applying fertiliser to fields, you have to have an eye on what the weather is going to do and at what point you're going to apply that. And it's a bit of a judgment. The second product that we use is the sodium acetate pellets, and those pellets are used because there are bits where the spreaders at the airport can't get to disperse the liquid to. So some of the smaller areas and around the apron stands and stuff, and that can be spread by hand because it's pellets. So we've got those two acetate-based products, but as I say, they've been used now for well over 15 years. So that's where we are.
I'd like to talk about Heathrow Airport, for example, is surrounded by 3 sites of special scientific interest and a wetland which has been designated as a Ramsar area. The 2 runways at Heathrow are almost 4 times the surface area of Ronaldsway, and any of the runoff discharges into those small freshwater protected areas. Heathrow's latest 2025-2026 snow plan for airside operations states on page 16, section 16.1, liquid anti-icing is commonly referred to as glycol, and as an ethylene glycol product, it is used as the primary anti-icing product in airside areas. It is particularly suited to runway anti- and de-icing and will prevent the settling of ice or snow, or will quickly remove any ice that has formed. But considering at the moment that there will be people listening on the radio right now who depend on the airport for the patient transfer service, major financial centre business links and a lot of other reasons, can you explain why Heathrow, which is surrounded by at least 4 protected nature reserves, can use glycol de-icing fluid with limited dilution from those small areas, and yet Ronaldsway, with the huge and well-aerated Irish Sea on its doorstep, cannot?
So, Gillian, I'm actually going to push back on this. And so, I've got a varied past, and you might not know that actually I have done some environmental work around there. And in fact, I have dived in some of those waterways around Heathrow, and they have a very good system of drainage capture that comes away from their runways in order to prevent damage to those waterways. So although it looks like it's very close proximity, they've invested quite heavily in making sure that any runoff from those runways is actually taken and it's treated and it doesn't run into the nearby nature reserves. So we don't have that equivalent buffer zone or capture of that material here. And it's not that it runs off in a diffuse way, like it will pool together and it will run. So if you remember back maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we had problems up at Onken direction, I think, where somebody had poured some chemicals down the drain outside their house and we had a whole load of dead fish in a river. If you start getting runoff that almost concentrates itself into waterways, you can actually have some really severe effects on a very, very localised basis. But you do get that, it's not that it's running in a diffuse way and diluting as you're suggesting. You're right, the whole of the Irish Sea is out there. But we don't throw materials into the Irish Sea on a routine, well, there's lots of volume and we're going to dilute and disperse it.
So was that the reason that we're not using glycol? Is that because of the special scientific interest zone?
It's the acetate stuff is not corrosive to aircraft, so you couldn't use things like the road salt that we use because that is corrosive stuff. It's not corrosive to the aircraft or the infrastructure that's down there, and then it breaks down in a much more safe way. So if you break down an acetate-based product, what you'll end up with is some acetic acid. That's vinegar. You put it on your chips. It's not it's a very mild acid, and it's not a big environmental challenge to deal with. So, we do have to look at those pathways of how those things break down, and what you'd risk if you were going to throw chemicals over there that were going to cause environmental harm is that actually you'd start causing dead spots and anoxic spots around the airport as that drainage came off and into the sea, and that's just not acceptable. We're in the middle of a biosphere here, and so we have to carefully balance the environmental damage against the need to keep our infrastructure open and working.
Right, but that's only once in a while, though, isn't it? And we are an international finance centre, and the airport is primarily to transport people, isn't it?
It is to transport people, but we do try and keep the airport open as much as we can when it's safe to do so. I think my comment about I've had a challenge about, well, Scandinavian countries do so much better, but they invest heavily. There are runways that are heated underneath, and we are not at that level of investment. What the data shows us from the 1950s is we would have had 25 snowy, frosty days in the 1950s every year. We're down to 11 or 12 of those snowy, frosty days. And so there is a balance to be struck between how much we invest in the infrastructure to deal with what is an increasingly reducing number of days of disruption against, the disruption that it causes to businesses. And I accept, it is one of the features of living on the island that you do experience travel disruption. And if it wasn't, if it's not ice or snow, it would be high winds that stop the ferry moving in and out. And neither of those things can I stop happening. How we respond to it is important. And I'm confident, having spoken to the airport team, that the response that happened a week or so ago was absolutely the right one.
Okay, Julian, final word?
I fail to see how the slopping around in the sea at Derby Haven, which is massively more than around Heathrow, and I think you have had some drainage upgrades at Ronaldsway in the not too distant past. You're having to throw 3 times as much of that potassium acetate, which will change the salinity or the salt concentration in the localised sea anyway, which can cause all sorts of other problems for the creatures that are in the sea. And it's occasional use, as you said. So for the sake of just one occasion like we've just had, and there is no guarantee that it won't have other issues with icing in the future. Nobody knows that. I just see that this is just going to be a major problem, because you cannot give a guarantee that what happened a week today won't happen again, unless you can come up with an idea as to how overnight icing is going to be not a major issue. And what happens if it lasts for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks? What are you going to do?
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to leave it there because I've got lots more to get to, Julian. We appreciate it. So, Michelle Haywood, who is responsible for the upkeep of pavements?
Pavements, that's the DOI highways team.
Okay, Sharon sent me a lot of photos in about various pavements and the bad state of pavements. What's the programme of renewal and repair for repavements? Who decides what goes where?
So when we get reports in about highways defects, they go onto our management system. Somebody will go out and assess it and prioritise it for repair. What we haven't done, and this is mainly due to low staff numbers and also other challenges that we've experienced within highways, is we have done very little pavement work in the last 6 months or so. We are currently in the process of looking to recruit into that team in order to strengthen that and to start expanding our ability to do more work on pavements. Okay,
Sharon sent me the photo. I'll just read you what she said. The photos she sent me are of Balafter Wildlife Park main road pavement, and the other sets from the Sulby Glen Hotel to the Sulby Claddock Road. I understand there's a nursery on the latter part of the road and children walk on the pavement after school. I tripped over on part of this pavement, and the lady in front of me advised me she fell and broke a bone a year ago in the same place. This was raised previously at both the meetings at RGS a year or so ago on a one-to-one, and I mentioned the state of the roads via Mannin Line as well. I'd gladly take anybody who plans the maintenance on the pavements, or even the ministers, to show them how shocking these pavements actually are and how it's nearly impossible to walk with a pram, and if you do, how you have to go onto the road in sections to actually be able to walk that section. It's an accident waiting to happen. That's from Sharon.
Yeah, and we do have a backlog of work that needs to be addressed, and I am aware of that. I've been talking with the team this morning, the highways team, and we are talking about prioritising the work and looking to see what we really need to do. But we are doing a lot of we have done a fair amount of planned maintenance, but we are doing a lot of reactive maintenance as well. And this comes in that list, but we are constrained by the number of people we have to do it and the budget that we have to deliver.
So it's money and people?
Yep.
Okay. If anybody wants to report a pavement, how do they do it?
If they go onto the government website, go to the DOI page, there's a report a problem link there, and you can click on that. You can put in the location, you can send us photos, you can write a description. If you give us your name and your phone number, just in case we can't find it, then somebody will contact you back just to check where it is, and that'll get, as I said, assessed, logged into our system and prioritised, and we're working our way through that long list of priorities.
Okay, this is Rob. Take a big deep breath for this one. Would you please explain the vehicle taxation on the Isle of Man, why the Isle of Man uses WLTP values and NEDC values as the same when it comes to vehicle taxation? WLTP is the newer vehicle test for emissions, which is much more rigorous test and produces higher values than the NEDC, therefore making the newer, greener vehicles more expensive to tax than the vehicles under the old NEDC. The UK changed their values in line with the newer WLTP in 2020. We've observed particular cases where two similar vehicles tested under these two different standards received vastly different tax rates. The older vehicle taxed at £288 under the NEDC, while the newer manufacturer advertised most efficient vehicle taxed at £724 under WLTP, a more than 150% increase despite being greener. This raises concerns about the fairness and accuracy of the current taxation approach, says Rob. Could you please explain the rationale between treating WLTP and NEDC values as equivalent for taxation purposes on the Isle of Man? Is there any plan to update and adjust the system to more accurately reflect the emission differences between testing methodologies? Does the DOI decide road tax?
Yes, we do. And I thank Rob for that very technical question. And I will admit that I don't know the technical details to be able to answer his question directly. What I can say is that we currently have a huge number of different classes within the vehicle duty order. What I've been doing is work to slim down those number of classes and to include hybrids and electric vehicles somehow, because we were aware that those vehicles, although they're quite heavy, which contributes to road damage, aren't contributing to vehicle duty, which does go and pays for the roads to be maintained and improved. So there is a piece of work underway in the department at the moment to look at what the future of vehicle duty orders are. The original system, he's right, was set up based on emissions. We don't think, and there is evidence to suggest that emissions-based system doesn't necessarily drive decisions by drivers to pick a lower emissions vehicle to pay less tax, because the difference between tax bands is usually quite marginal, although I appreciate the example that he cited is quite an extreme one. So there are changes afoot, and we've seen changes in the UK now where they're starting to look at how do you apply some sort of tax to electric vehicles, and they've gone for a standardised rate as well. We're not trying to drive behaviours anymore in terms of your choice about emissions, but what we need to do is make sure that we're collecting vehicle duty that covers the amount of work that we need to do on the roads.
Okay, by the way, WLTP means Worldwide Harmonised Light Vehicle Test Procedure, and the NEDC, the New European Driving Cycle. Yes, I had to look it up as well. So there we are. Well, I mean, bluntly, are people with electric vehicles going to get lower road tax than internal combustion engines?
I think where we've done this a number of ways now, and I say this work has been ongoing, I think, almost since I joined the department. Well, before I joined the department, and I inherited a project that's partway through. We have looked at the data in a number of different ways. We've looked at the weight, we've looked at emissions, we've looked at, even if you could get to something that's actually charging on fuel and charging on the electricity that you use for charging your car. So we do away with having vehicle licences altogether. All of those things are still under discussion at the moment, and we haven't landed on what the preferred route forward is yet.
Okay, we're out of time now, and I think you're with us in a couple of months' time or so. I've got a message in from Pauline who just said, when Michelle comes next time, could she bring one of her officers with us so we can talk to them as well?
I can do, but I don't necessarily feel it's necessary to have my officers out here and talking to people. If you've got questions, I'm happy to field them.
Okay. Well, we didn't get to the trams. We didn't get to the potholes, but thanks for being with us today. We appreciate it. And good news for Eric as well. And was it true? Are you serious about the photo opportunity on the bus with Eric?
Well, apart from the fact I'll have to drive all the way to Ramsey from Portsmouth, but yes, I'll meet up with Eric. We'll do a photo.
All right. Thanks for being with us.
I'll welcome him when he gets here.
Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks to Michelle Haywood, and thank you for being with us this Friday lunchtime. We're back with an open line on Monday and live from King William's College with the students in year 12 and 13. Thanks to Chris on the phones. Enjoy your